Hello everybody, UFC Wildcat here,
And Powder Blue Bolts.
and this week we were talking about the Allstate Sugar Bowl between the Louisville Cardinal and the Florida Gators.
Yeah, this should be a pretty good game. Florida coming into the game ranked third nationally as far as their defense. And their head coach, Will Muschamp, is a very defensive-minded guy. And you go back to his days at Texas, those defenses were pretty much feared in the Big 12. And carrying his talents over to Florida, he's created a very, very successful program for the Gators.
Yeah, almost as feared as the Will Muschamp stare. Oh
Yeah.
God, so scary.
He is one of the most passionate and fiery coaches in the country.
Which is great, I love that in a coach.
Oh, yeah.
But then you go on the other side, you got Charlie Strong, another really good defensive-minded coach. Even though Louisville defense isn't really that good this year, I mean, they do only give up 23.8 points a game. I mean, it's against far worse competition.
Yeah, I mean, when you're giving up 24 points to, Florida International and, North Carolina scoring 34 on you. And, I mean, I don't know. There's some games I'm seeing on their schedule that you kind of scratch your head at, like their loss to Syracuse, allowing 45 points. I'm not knocking Syracuse at all. It's just like,
Yeah.
if you're going to a BCS bowl, you should win games against Syracuse and against UConn. And Louisville hasn't done that.
Yeah, and the triple overtime loss to UConn at home is definitely one that you scratch your head at. Definitely one of those that makes me wonder about this team. But I don't know. This game could be good, but again, we're gonna have to wait and see what's gonna go on. You want to give us some key players for Florida?
Yeah, this is a game you kind of look at, and it looks almost a bit of a mismatch. But, again, we do have to cover it. And leading Florida is Jeff Driscoll, having 1,400 yards passing through the air, 11 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. He does have 400 yards rushing on the year, along with 4 touchdowns. So this guy's pretty good. He's not afraid to run the ball when he needs to, and he's pretty good at passing downfield, although Florida's offense has been a little underachieving this year. They've been led by their defense, and their offense can put points on the board, but they really, really rely on their defense. And that all starts with their senior All-American safety,
Mike Elam.
Yeah, this guy's really, really good. Leading a Florida Gators defense ranks, like I said, third nationally, only allowing 12.9 points per game. And they've only given up 5 passing touchdowns on the year. Just kind of think about that for a second. And the SEC, having all these really good offenses and everything, only allowing 5 passing touchdowns is a pretty good mark. And when you get 19 interceptions and only allowing 5 touchdowns, that stat right there just kind of shows me how good this Florida defense can be.
Yeah, definitely was one of the teams that are considered for the national championship. And, if you take out a heartbreaker to Georgia where the Florida tight end, as he's going in, fumbles it into the end zone, they could have had a chance to tie it up and maybe tie it up and take it to overtime.
Yeah.
But they lost 17-9 in Jacksonville, and it's a tough game to lose. I mean, Florida, though. No, it wasn't... Jackson,
you're right.
yeah, because they have that special thing going on.
You're right. What's their rivalry called?
Oh man, it's
The world's largest outdoor
cocktail party. That's it. Whew, good one right there.
Name for a rivalry.
But yeah, going back to Jeff Driscoll, I mean, Will Muschamp basically runs his offense to a way where the offense is basically not asking too much out of Driscoll. Running with Mike Gillislee, the running back, who has 1,104 yards and 10 touchdowns. Give him the ball, let him run, and, wear down the opposing defense, and, let your defense win games, which is definitely Will Muschamp's bread and butter.
Yeah, it's been pretty successful for the Gators. Like you said, only losing a heartbreaker to Georgia, and that really was an extremely ugly game if you guys ever watched it. I mean, it was just turnovers and just sloppy play and just undisciplined football, if you ask me. But Florida is one of those teams that kind of deserves to be in the BCS title game. I mean, you kind of look at them in Alabama. They're really, really similar. Their offenses are good, but not great. They have awesome defenses. But, I mean, a team like Louisville, yeah, they won their conference, and yeah, they're really good. I mean, they came into the season with high hopes of finishing, and they got to where they wanted to be in a BCS bowl.
Yeah, but, I mean, we look at Louisville, and we think about it. They won their conference, but really, it was a 4-way tie between Syracuse, Rutgers, Cincinnati, and themselves. And they only won because they were higher ranked in the BCS. And I don't know. Let's look at it this way. Rutgers, when they played their bowl game, they lost to Virginia Tech, who a lot of people thought Virginia Tech isn't really that good of a team. They're kind of bad in their conference. So if you take Rutgers, who's one of the big teams in the Big East, and they're going to lose to Virginia Tech, who's not even in like the top half of their conference, I mean, it shows where the Big East is at.
Mm-hmm.
So I think huge mismatch here. But the Louisville offense has an amazing quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. This kid is phenomenal. He's one of the next big things. I mean, look out for him for Heisman next year. He'll be up there, especially when he plays weaker competition. Teddy Bridgewater finished the regular season with almost 3,500 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. And he's actually been a little banged up. So, some people may say that the long month between the bowl game and the last game of the season could hurt this guy, but actually it's probably going to help him. It's going to, help him get back to full strength. So definitely look out for Teddy Bridgewater. And that's pretty much it. I mean, he spreads the ball around. They have a few guys who have pretty good receiving stats, but basically he's spreading the ball around to everybody. So what are your keys to the game for Florida?
Yeah, I think Florida needs to play some solid D like they have all year, but if you're Florida, if I'm Will Muschamp, I kind of know my defense is going to play well. They have been all year. They're third in the nation, and they can play, against really anyone. You got to kind of really rely on your offense. You got to rely on Jeff Driscoll and Mike Gillespie, is it?
Gillislee, I think.
Gillislee, yeah. You got to rely on those two to create some points, because if you don't score against this Louisville defense, you're going to have to rely on your own defense to stop Teddy Bridgewater. And if you let him take control of the game, it could spell trouble for the Gators. But I don't see this being a too difficult task for them. Their defense is really, really good. And, yeah.
I think for Louisville, Teddy Bridgewater needs to have a flawless game against a Florida defense who really isn't giving much up in the pass department, which is definitely the bread and butter for Louisville. If you look at Louisville's rushing stats, they are actually 100th overall, only averaging 127 yards rushing per game. But their pass offense almost yields 300 yards a game. So, again, it's going to be one of those games where it's strength against strength. It's going to be really hard. And, again, when I think about it, Teddy Bridgewater has not faced really any top-tier competition. So, it's going to be a whole different monster going up against a fiery Will Muschamp defense. But if anybody can do it from the Big East, it'll definitely be Teddy Bridgewater. So I like to see what he's going to do against this Florida defense. So you want to give us a prediction on what you think is going to happen in this game?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. If it's anybody, it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater to do this coming from the Big East. But if you're Florida, you're not going to lose to Syracuse. You're not going to lose to Connecticut. And those are two things that Louisville has both done. So I don't really see Florida losing this game. I think they're going to take control early and just kind of cruise control through this game. I think it's going to be 45-13 Gators.
Yeah, I'm getting the same feeling. I think it's going to be like the Oklahoma UConn Fiesta Bowl that happened a few years back when UConn got into a BCS Bowl and Oklahoma basically came out and dominated from the opening kickoff to the final whistle. So I think it'll be like that. I think it'll be a Florida 38-7 victory against the Cardinal. This will be one of the worst BCS bowls. So I mean, we're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I mean, it can still have some competition. I'll say this, like I've said before, it is bowl season, and anything can happen. Be sure to join us next time on our selection show for the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. Always a good one. We're going to be looking at the Oregon Ducks versus the Kansas State Wildcats.
Make sure to leave us a like. Definitely comment on what you think is going to happen in this game, because again, it's one of the BCS bowls where we finished 3 of them so far, and I think we got 5 total, so should be good. And also subscribe. We're almost done. We've got 5 more bowls left, including the one next, as Powder Blue Bolt said, the Fiesta Bowl. It's going to be a good one, so definitely make sure you subscribe. UFC Wildcat and Powder Blue Bolts signing out.